Good evening. You're listening to the Xtreme Movie Show. Tonight's episode, Xtreme TV. Tonight, we are covering Season 1, Episode 8, the season finale of Twin Peaks, the original show from 1990 on ABC. I'm your host, Rob. With me is RDV, or excuse me, not RDV, Professor Pixel, who is with me. RDV will be later with thee. Let's get the poetry out of the way, Pixel, because bottom line is this is the episode that supposedly would wrap everything together, being the 8th and final one in Season 1, the short mid-season type replacement on ABC before summer break, where I believe it was out in reruns on ABC Network, and then it would come back on Season 2 in the fall. We got a lot going on here. The body count is high. We get several what seem to be resolutions to some of the key storylines, even if they're minor ones in the background. But damn, this body count's pretty high, and at the end, I don't know whether to feel fulfilled or to go, damn it, I'm left wanting more. What a friggin' soap opera type ending. What's your initial impression?
I want more.
Good.
This series has been enjoyable the whole way through. Even in episodes where I said it lacks, I never lacked interest. The only thing that I really feel dissatisfied with is that final invitation to love, man. There's barely anything in it.
Yeah, but there's a neat part about it, which we'll get to. Let's dive right on in. We've talked about how we weren't sure what to expect with each episode, but some of the rules that we've been established from Twin Peaks is that it seems like every episode takes place roughly in a 24-hour period, in a one-day period. This one immediately starts off slightly different, where we get this tropical theme and we get some music, because James and Donna and the whole gang there, they've been trying to get in the Jacoby's office, and they finally do. This is where we talked about them setting up him to get out of the place by having her call, dressed as Laura with the blonde wig. Somebody's watching Bobby, watch her, and it's getting kind of dark, kind of creepy. We know that there's drugs and Bobby's motorcycle and all that. But the one thing that I thought was neat about this scene in here, despite them finding the tape that the way that we'd listen to a little bit later, which is pretty dark, is we've seen the entire series where Jacoby has this like surfer dude, hang ten kind of Hawaiian vibe to him, not necessarily California, but Hawaiian, and he's always drinking the tropical drinks, and it's definitely something that stands out from the rest of this town that's supposed to be a few miles away from the Canadian border. And so when they're going through his stuff, they find where he's kept some of the umbrellas from his drinks, and he has one for like when the men are on the moon and this and that. And I just thought that was kind of a nice little character piece. I don't know why. It's consistent with him, and while it doesn't necessarily say anything about his character so much, it's just a nice little detail. It's probably meaningless in the scope of things, but they find the tape that Laura had left that we knew he was listening to, and we knew this from very early on in episode 1. So it's kind of like we come around full circle again with him. But he's getting his ass beat, and it looks like he has a heart attack here to start off this. So immediately we get somebody potentially dying here. What's your take on this initial scene?
Yeah, no, when it came to them in Jacoby's home, and they were flipping the music dial, and like, what the hell? Turn it off. There has to be someone. It is very quirky inside, to say the least. Whenever the opening shot started, and it was just palm trees, I was like, this isn't right.
Yeah, feels different.
Then we scoped, and I realized, okay, wait, this is a wall, and then we obviously are in Jacoby's home. I think the more interesting part of this is actually Jacoby getting his ass beat by a man in black. We don't know who it is. And as he's watching, not Laura, Madeline, I think her name is, from afar.
Yes, Maddy and the James gang. Mm-hmm.
But I'm a little confused about this mystery man, because while he is kicking Jacoby's ass, it looked like he was there for not Laura down by the gazebo. But he doesn't get a chance to get to her because Ben and not Ben, James and Donna, they drive back in time and basically all go home. We forgot to mention Bobby, though. Whenever Donna and James are walking away, Bobby comes out and he holds his hand out and he makes it like he's shooting James.
Yeah.
I mean,
finger bang.
He did plant something in his motorcycle in the previous episode, so I guess he thinks he's pretty much finished.
Yeah, he's setting them up, obviously, with some of the drugs they've been peddling or whatever. And it's true, we don't know who this person is creeping around, but obviously it's a white person. You get a brief glimpse of him, and I assume it's the same person that we saw a few episodes back when Leo was meeting late at night with the kids, but not 100% sure, but I just assume so. So I'm not sure what's confusing about it other than, wait a minute, who is this and why is he here? But quickly from this scene, you get to where Jacoby, because he's having a heart attack or dying or whatever, there's this neat little shot of the camera zooming in on his eye, and then it kind of zooms back out, a slow crash zoom, if you want to think of it that way, for a spinning wheel at the craps table, because it's a tale of feast or famine here, One-Eyed Jacks, where you got Big Ed losing, and Cooper's got this stupid, outrageous hand with playing blackjack where he's got like a 3, a 2, 2 aces, and like a 4 or something. And the guy's like, do you want another card? Are you sure? And he's like, absolutely. And he pulls like another ace out. And it's like, God, this guy's hitting on everything. And of course, it's Renault. And this is kind of a neat scene here too, because you can tell Cooper's enjoying it. But they're deep undercover trying to figure out what's going on there, trying to set him up to get him across the state line. But in the meantime, we've got the deal closing with the group for the country club there. So we know Audrey is already there, but we know she hasn't seen her father, who owns the place and runs it, who's there yet to close the table. But there's this subtle little scene, which I don't know if it'll mean anything later on. Obviously, it's the last episode where Audrey's being asked by the house lady, Blackie, to pick a card. And Blackie spreads out the deck of cards, fresh new deck. She picks out the Queen of Diamonds, which later on we see it gets sewed into her sexy work outfit, which I think is kind of meaningless. But Blackie puts her hand over Audrey's hand, and I'm like, oh, little HLA, hot lesbian action potentially, although they wouldn't really show that on TV, but shows that Blackie's definitely taken not only a professional interest, but perhaps a personal one in hers too. But in this scene, it's a little extended where you get Cooper sitting down. He has the chip that was the chipped chip, if you were from One-Eyed Jacks, that he shows Jacques about it. And he says, hey, I'm here. I'm the guy that's the bankroll behind Leo. I got a job for you later. You need to be here in 2 hours. What I thought was really neat about this scene was that even though he reels Jacques in, Cooper, he's enjoying it, but Jacques is just kind of like a creepy bastard. He's morbidly obese. He's dressed up. But he just seems like I'm not going to say a good guy or a genuine guy. He just seems like one of those guys that's like, yeah, I did this. And then when Cooper's asking about what happened that night in the room, and that's filling in our mind with these visions, it gets a little kind of dark with the way they filmed it and stuff too. But I like the scene. I didn't think it was, this episode is very fast moving, but this scene is probably the one that strikes them the most, bringing us all the way back to when we first found Laura's body at the beginning of episode 1, and then Pulaski's body a little bit later. How did you view this?
Of these scenes, you're right. The most interesting of it is when Dale is drinking with Jacques, and says that, yeah, I'm the man that was behind Leo. I have a job just for you. And he's asking how the chip got chipped. And as he's explaining how the bird started pecking at Laura, and then Leo put the chip into Laura's mouth, you can see how disturbed Dale is, but he doesn't even blink as he's staying in his role. He is definitely a dedicated agent, but it does take a toll, and you can see that on him right there. My apologies. And you're right. How it was shot, it is very. It's focusing on Jacques' mouth and bite the bullet, baby. And
Yeah, very Lynchian, as they would say. I try to avoid saying anything like that, but it's a perfect example of that.
But other than that, yeah, the scene we get the setup of Jacques, I suppose.
Yeah, there's a quick cut scene and where Audrey's just by herself waiting in a room, obviously to service somebody, although she seems completely comfortable. But I'm just going to throw this little nitpicky thing out there. Her outfit's an appropriate outfit for the profession she is now trying to be in. I just thought she should have had something like dark, to contrast her body, because she's got those classic 1940s movie star type looks, and just the white on white skin just didn't really do it for me. She should have been dressed more like Blackie, I thought, but
well,
I don't know. That's just a nitpicky detail. That's the only thing that disappointed me.
It's not just waiting for somebody. Blackie says the owner is coming by later and he likes to spend some time with the new girls. So that's exactly who she has her waiting on in that room. And as for the outfit, I don't know. I think Blackie was going for a kind of innocence to her, trying to lean into that. And I can't deny that I can't say that she isn't attractive.
No, you're right. It's just like when we see a little later in this episode, before the owner does come in, you get this like handmaiden. I didn't catch this before that when I'd watched it, and I had to go back and look at the scene. It looks like a Quasimodo person that's sewing in this giant Queen of Diamonds, I think it was, on the card into her before scuttling off when there's a knock at the door. But I just thought that was kind of weird. But we'll get to that. That's towards the end.
I never noticed her, so yeah, that is. I just.
Well, we're too busy staring at her, kind of sexily sprawled out on the bed. All right, so the next scene is the Shelley scene with Leo. Take us through this.
So Shelley basically goes to her sink, takes some soap, she has this towel set up, and she starts washing her hair in the sink. She sets the gun just to the side of her. As she's washing her hair, she gets to a point where she's close to done. So I think she hears something. And so she is reaching for the towel, but slowly the towel is getting pulled away from her hand that's trying to reach for it. And then Leo just wraps his arms around her and he's like, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done that. And it fades with her screaming.
Yeah. Neil's a bad boy. Yeah, it's not a very long scene. There's obviously nothing too memorable about it other than it's pretty intense here too. But like I say, a lot of things are happening pretty quick here. So we know that Leo's going to do something with Shelley, and we know we'll see that in a minute, actually. Okay, now we have the stakeout scene with Andy and Harry and all that, talking about how Lucy's giving Andy the cold shoulder. And I told you I thought she was pregnant the way she was acting. But this is where Jacques pulls in, gets arrested, and there's a really neat over the shoulder shot when Truman is going up to arrest him, because Jacques gets surrounded by everybody. It's late at night, and you think it's over, and they're walking back, but Jacques kind of bumps the dude, takes the gun, and then we get Andy turning all Tom Berenger on us and sniping out the guy or whatever. And he's like, I think you need to go get that ambulance truck or whatever. And I thought, okay, this was the little arc for Andy. I thought it was a good scene, but it's like, wow, you take a dope like Andy and you put him in, turns into all Clint Eastwood. I thought this was kind of a cool scene. What'd you think?
He's still Deputy Dumbass.
Okay.
he got his shot in. Yeah. Oh, his big moment. Yay. I don't really. He's still Deputy Dumbass. Has been for days. One shot to it.
If you didn't like this scene, what about the next one where you got James, you've got Maddy, you got Donna. They're listening to the old classic, realistic little tiny mini cassette boom box there or whatever, and are listening to Laura's tape that they had fallen in Jacoby's place. Laura basically sounds like such a, I'm trying to be G-rated here. She says some very insulting things about James. Mentions how someone's trying to kill her, but it really turns her on. And it's like, okay, she's definitely not whatever. And I got to say, so I've been bagging on James, the entire season, but seeing him take this gut punch about Laura saying, I'm sick and tired of being sweet. He's too sweet. I can only take so much. I really, get my rocks off with this other dude or whatever. It sounds kind of cheesy the way her voice is because it sounds very girlish, I think. But this was also a good scene too. I thought, because it's real. Laura's not this person that we think she is. We kind of know that. It's been insinuated, but this is like confirmation to me, and it really hits James like a ton of bricks, man. It's pretty awesome. What'd you think?
Yeah, no, I actually agree. Last episode, or was it the episode? No, it was last episode. I said there's something to James, I think, because of how he was staring at Maddy whenever she was in the blonde wig. But after this, I think he was just caught up in Laura, and he didn't actually have anything to do with anything, as they say. He really cared for Laura, but Laura didn't give shit about him. My apologies.
Yeah, even more confirmation that even Hollywood views, being a nice guy is not a good thing when it comes to being a man. All right, so a couple more small, quick scenes actually happen, which is, to me, a little different than a lot of the episodes we have, where sometimes a scene would play out and take its time. But you get, obviously, the one B or C level plot with Leo. Not only is Leo and Shelley having issues or whatever, but Leo's also been tasked to torch the lumber mill. So he's got Shelley tied up in there, and this bomb thing, this cheesy, and that he's going to go kill Bobby. And it's like, yeah, okay, I get it. It's finally advancing this plot. I don't necessarily care about it. I kind of like Bobby. Leo, I like him as a character, he's not stupid, but he's kind of mean, and I just still don't get the Leo Shelley dynamic or whatever. But Shelley's not a good person either, so it's kind of delicious watching all this. And there's going to be the explosion because we know that Catherine and is involved, and Josie and Hank and all this stuff too. But before that even goes any farther, you see a scene that I'm not a fan of, and it's when Nadine wears a dress. She's at home. She's writing this note out, and she takes a bunch of pills to off herself. I don't like that at all. Nadine's a bit of a quirky character, and I don't mean that in a bad way, because obviously some of these characters are more quirky than others. But the dynamic between Nadine and Ed, I thought was worth exploring more. So, and again, until we have a dead body and it's dead, we don't say that anybody is, but we see these two things really quick before we get Hank and Josie talking with each other. So these three scenes here, what are they doing for you?
Well, when Leo is basically setting up the timer to go off to basically ignite the bunch of gasoline, he's poured all over the place, and he has Shelley tied up right there. She's trying to find, but Leo's saying, "You think about what you did, and you think about it good, because right now I'm going to go kill Bobby." I still feel bad for Shelley. Absolutely no question. And if only Bobby was more of a man, could have handled Leo himself. But no. But we'll get to that later. When Nadine, the entire slow scene, you know exactly what's going to happen. She doesn't dress up for anything. So when she's there in a dress on a blanket, you know something's about to happen. And she just pours all those pills into a bowl and has a glass of water right there. Goodbye. There's something seriously wrong with that woman. They never explained what happened, if she was ever normal. There's something wrong with that woman, though. But the scene with Hank and Josie, that is the longest of the three here. And
It
he's
is.
basically explaining to Josie how we're still in business. Even if you think we had a deal, okay, deal's going through, but we're still in business. There's a part of it where while he's talking, he's standing at an angle. It's pointed at the antlers, and it's like right above his head.
Yep.
And I don't know if that's intentional, but
Obviously it has to. Everything on film is intentional to me.
Well,
So I think so too. It makes him look like a devil.
Yeah, absolutely. And Josie, though, it's heavily implied that Hank offed her a husband for her. And basically what Josie's part of the reason that he got in trouble. At least that's how it felt.
Well, yeah, because Josie was presented as, and again, everything's not what it seems to be. Josie was presented to us as the damsel in distress, but she didn't really talk much ethnic because she's Asian, so a little bit different. Stands out in a small town like Twin Peaks. So yeah, you're right. We Piper Laurie did such a great job as Catherine Martell being such a major bitch, but in such a good way. I mean, she's just so outstanding that it really kind of hid what Josie turned out to be too, because it's almost like a contest between who's the baddest bitch in the neighborhood out of these two women, as far as that goes. It's just that Josie being younger, relatively speaking, and quiet and supposedly nice to the people that own the mill that we saw early on when she made them take the day off to honor and recognize when Laura had passed away, and Catherine didn't want to, saying, "Oh, you cost us this money." That was a great way to really illustrate the difference between these two here. And then now it's been kind of interesting for an episode or two where Catherine's found out, hey, wait a minute, with the insurance money, when it boils down, something's wrong with the paperwork. Now I can't find the hidden logs with everything. And I'm like, you know what, for an angle that I didn't care anything about at all, it all of a sudden has become interesting, because I'm like, well, God, I almost, Catherine's gone from heel to, somebody good, because you're right. Hank seems like he's the mastermind of everybody except for maybe the one-eyed Jack Store thing. It doesn't seem like that's involved with Hank. So to me, that's like two bad guy lines. But here you see Catherine going through everything, and Pete comes in, and they actually have an extended sequence where they kind of reference their past relationship. They talk about things, and Pete's really kind of not interested in that. And he's just kind of romanticizing over the summer they had when they fell in love and stuff. And you get this broken up in a few spots here too, but it's nice development, because even if we don't get a resolution with what's going on in this episode 8, of every angle is moving forward, and they're all getting plenty of screen time to advance to where it seems like they're all on the same page. But the next big scene is the one where you go back to the police station or whatever. Everybody's kind of high-fiving Andy. Andy's the stud. Everybody's, you the man kind of thing, pointing their fingers at him. And of course, Lucy's like, like getting all aroused and turned on because he finally did something manly. And he goes to talk to her, and they're like, go give your best shot. And he's, like you say, he's a dope. He walks over there, and she's like, I'm pregnant and all that. But she also gets a phone call. And the phone call is Bobby, who's trying to act like Leo, saying, hey, you need to check out James, because James has got this nice motorcycle, and he says you need to check out James. And something about, he makes a reference about Easy Rider, which is the movie about Harley Davidsons, which is what James rides, which I thought that was kind of neat, because that's where Bobby had stored the drugs at the end of the last episode. So there's a lot of quick stuff in here in these scenes. Anything stand out to you?
Well, when it comes to Pete and Catherine, whenever she starts pulling at his heartstrings, and at that moment, we're like, she's saying, oh, there's definitely, beneath all the scarring, we definitely have that within us that we had before. And he hugs her, and he's like, oh, Catherine. And you just see her face as...
It's like I'm dealing with a little child.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the way she acts. She's totally working him, is what it seems like to me.
Yeah, no, it's not just what it seems like. It's what she's doing. Oh, my gosh. I couldn't like her less. Pete, while he does seem kind of dopey himself, he seems like a really good guy, and he's not in any kind of position where he would have to be anything else. At least doesn't seem that way, but Catherine is just... she is not the right gal for a guy like Pete. When it comes to the sheriff's station, Andy gets the encouragement to go patch things up with her, and whenever they kiss, and it's like okay, it's coming together. And then as soon as she says she's pregnant, the door opens. Andy walks away, and Lucy tells everybody else, "There's coffee," and you can tell she's not in a happy mood. And I guess he didn't take the news all that well. I don't know. I really feel like Deputy Dumbass is still Deputy Dumbass. But when it comes to the call, there was a certain level. I'm like, you can tell that's not Leo. At the same time,
Lucy's not.
Hmm?
Lucy's not going to be able to tell. They're fit for each other.
yeah.
Well, the next big scene is the hospital scene. You want to take us through that?
Oh yeah. Where Dale is basically questioning Jacques. Jacques explaining how he definitely was in the room with Laura, Ronette, and Leo, but they were getting drugged out of their mind, and he basically went outside for a moment, passed out. When he woke up, he went back in. The girls and Leo were gone. So he knows nothing about the train car. And it seems like when it comes to the actual murder, Jacques has nothing to do with it. And then they are shown Jacoby. The doctor's explaining how they found him, and he seemed to have a heart attack. So they have him patched up, and he's recovering right now. But we definitely get some more information about Jacques. While he was there that night, it seems he has nothing to do with the actual murder. It doesn't matter how disturbing he is. He's a
scumbag.
Yeah.
But he's partying with women that were of legal age. And, the cabin in the middle of nowhere seemed to be their love shack. I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. I'm simply saying on the surface, that's what it appears like. Did he do anything illegal? Did they say, no, don't tie me up? We've already heard Laura basically say, I like this guy and what he does and everything too. And also the other piece of information that he gives basically, and this is what's good, is it's not death by exposition, in poor writing where it's to remind you of everything, but it does fill in the gaps. We had saw earlier pictures of Laura in that adult magazine Flesh World, but here, Jacques like, oh yeah, the ladies had been in that place before too. They knew what was going on. And it was Laura's idea to take the pictures for us to put him in there. So you get the idea. It's not like she experimented once or twice with kinky fringe level sex at her age. It was just her idea, and she wanted more of it. And that's the disturbing part too, is once she got a taste of something not in a normal mainstream, let's just say, she wanted more of it and kept diving deeper and deeper into it. And you can see that even though this guy's a schlubby bastard himself, Jacques, he's just kind of going along and partying with the ladies that would do that, and that's cool. But you're absolutely right. It's like, man, oh man, did he really do anything? Yeah, he's involved in stuff, but did he actually kill both of them? No. So we still don't know who killed her, assuming what he's saying is true.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna pretty much assume what he says is true, because Dale says it himself. He's too stupid to lie.
Right. Right.
So they think they're going to be able to use him to basically testify against Leo. And so they seem to be in a good direction there. The next scene is we get more of Catherine and Pete, and Catherine is freaking out. It's not here. It's not here. And Pete, at one moment, he pulls out He's looking at a yearbook, and I think it says Monica. And Catherine's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And he says, "I didn't think I'd ever see this yearbook again." But Catherine gets a call. There's a man on the line, and it seems to be Hank, and basically says what she wants is at the mill. Catherine tries to get some more out of him, but she doesn't really succeed. So after she's sent Pete away, she takes a gun and she goes off. And it leads right into the next scene where Norma has Hank talking basically to her, trying to charm her, and actually getting the moment to say how, I've dreamt about a life with you in this place. And they share a kiss before he basically goes in the back.
See, I don't look at it as sharing. What I liked about the scene was that you can tell just that she's just watching him and wants to listen, and he's working her too, because as sincere as he might think he is, or at least how he's coming across, it's like, oh, I shouldn't even be telling you this. So it's the classic takeaway, verbally speaking, like, well, you probably don't really want to hear this. No. Tell me. He's working the woman's curiosity and natural intuition to want to know everything and to talk, whereas guys don't want to talk. So he mentions to her, and then of course he says something kind of schlobby romantic where you're like, damn it, that's an okay line, where he's like, well, I just realized that we've been together 20 years, so maybe I had this all wrong, and it's the next 20 years are supposed to be the better ones. And what's really good about the scene is she's got this great look on her face where she's like wanting to believe it. And let's be honest, even though she's been cheating on him on the side with Ed, even though he's a competent dude, seems kind of like the quote unquote nice guy, even though most women would have the affair with the bad guy. Well, her husband is the bad guy here, and he's being charming with her, so you can just see her doing it. And I think it's a really, really good acting scene here with her part. I'm like, as bad as you might say these people are, and Hank, whether we go, well, he's believing what he's spouting or he's really, really working her, he's like, for a character that didn't show up until halfway through, it's like, damn, he's really, really good. Like I say, to me, he's like one of the two top bad guys. So I did think that was a really good acting scene. Maybe not necessarily like for plot or anything, but just watching, I'm like, man, she does such a good job.
You're absolutely right. And I think you're right when you say they don't share a kiss. He takes a kiss. He definitely does the lean in, and you're right. He is trying to work her.
Yeah, she doesn't back away or anything, so she accepts it. She's very passive about it,
Mm-hmm.
At least Shelley shot her man.
Yeah, Shelley definitely was able to keep Leo away, at least for a little while. The next scene, and it's another one, a small scene. Ed basically gets home from after One-Eyed Jackson. All that goes down. And he's trying to call for Nadine and sees her on the floor. And he's like, oh, no, Nadine, you can't do this. Come on, honey, stay with me. And he tries calling 911 saying, I need an ambulance now. But I'm pretty sure with how much time has passed, I'm too far gone. But again, I don't know that. Ed truly does care for her somehow through all of it. But she, whenever she's there, you're right. Ed is a nice guy, and
I'll say good guy. I'm not nice, because nice has that negative connotation.
I meant good. My bad.
No, but that's just the way I'm talking. So just to define it, I guess, because there are all these. The way the characters are with somebody else in here is what's interesting as a show. That's the soap opera part to me about it. Because like in the next scene, it's a pretty quick scene actually, where they're back at the station and James has showed up, and there's like one long shot where it's centered around Truman walking through there's a bunch of data going back and forth really, really quick. And I think as we only got about 10 minutes left in this episode, it's kind of picking up, because this is when you get the information about Lucy's phone call that she got from Bobby pretending to be Leo. You've got Bobby coming in saying, I think you should listen to this. And it's the tape that him and the gang listened to earlier. But then, of course, Truman found the drugs in the Harley while Cooper was talking to James, saying, I don't know what kind of sick game you're playing, but they're trying to put out some cop stuff around the park where the quote unquote Laura was spotted too. So like I say, this scene is neat because it sets up like one long shop. A lot of people are coming in and out, so it's kind of almost quickly paced where you feel like, okay, it's picking up pace to end here on a big note in about 10 minutes. So we're going to go out with a bang or a whimper, I don't know. And then to kind of sum it up in a very dramatic fashion, this is going to end up in a hospital. You get Leland Palmer coming in there basically saying, hey, did you arrest a guy? Trim was like, can't really say anything right now, but you need to go home. And of course, the doctor who was with him has to go with it. And he hasn't been seen a lot in this whole show. He's a third or fourth level character, but he's definitely important because he's the one that gives some of the information, and it's continuity too, because it's I think it's was it James's father's the doctor, I guess. Not James, it's
Donna's.
Yeah. So he tells him, hey, you should go home with Sarah now, when we haven't seen her for a while, which is good because she's almost getting on our nerves. But he just stands there and the scene finishes with a zoom in on his face, and he's like, hospital. And you're like, uh-oh, he's going to go to the hospital. He's going to do something he wants to do or whatever. But it ends with them at this point with all this information going back and forth, basically building, like I say, to finale. So before we get to the next major scene after that, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, I feel like there's some misstep here with how Dale has acted towards James whenever they bring out the coke from his ride outside, and James is clearly surprised. I don't think we get really any payoff for this, because we see Dale basically saying, what's this? And James just staring at it. The next scene, we're finally getting done with these Icelandic people who are there. Ben is finally getting them to sign. And he gets a call from Hank. And Hank, this entire time, we've talked about him. He's one of the main bad guys here. And he clearly has a hand in everything.
Yeah. He's the heavy muscle of the town, it looks like. Yeah. And it seems like Ben's the super boss. And Hank, executes Ben's plans, is what it seems like, because you're right.
From there, we get, I think, it's really
your boy Bobby's scene next.
Yes, exactly. Bobby is going in there. He's calling for Shelley, and at one point he goes through a doorway, and slowly we see Leo in the back closing the door.
It's so cheesy.
Oh yeah, absolutely, but it's so fun. And he's saying, "Oh, well, you're looking for her, Bobby? Well, you're not going to find her." And he has this axe that he's trying to hit him with. And at one point, it looks like, because Bobby trips up and he's against the wall, it looks like it's the end. He lifts the axe, but a shot comes from outside. We get to actually see through the window. Hank is there. He shot Leo. Leo stumbles back and crashes onto the couch. And Bobby just runs away. And this is what I mean when I say we don't get a really good end to Invitation to Love, because Invitation to Love ends with somebody getting shot. And then the final part of the scene is we go to Leo's face, and it looks like all life just drains out of it.
Yeah, he was already shot earlier by Shelley, and he gets shot here too, and he's about to assume room temperature on the sofa. But the thing that was almost confusing to me about the scene is when Leo's shot, Bobby sticks his head up and he looks out and we get the zoom in on Hank walking off. So I'm going, well, I assume that means that Hank saw Bobby and knows because of the way it looks. I'm not convinced Leo's dead because we don't know how dead bodies are dealt with here, honestly, in this show. There's several people in the hospital already, but they're not dead. So I just like, okay, this episode where everybody goes in there. Yeah, an Invitation of Love to me was kind of a little disappointing because, Montana, the goofy guy, he looks like a drugged out, the guy on Psych, Sean. He looks like a drugged out Sean or whatever. And I'm like, oh man, it always reminds me of it. But the thing that was kind of funny too is, and the reason why I said I'm not sure Leo's dead is because they show Montana being also shot in the shoulder and sliding down with this really dumb look on his face. He's got the bandana and earring. But the last thing you see of Leo is Leo looking at it like he's watching this last little scene, like, oh my God, that's me. But it's not the last little head tilt or his eyes closed or any of those things that you think, okay, this is why he dies. So it looks like maybe he is. I don't know. And with only a few minutes left, I'm going, we're probably not going to know. So I'm just going to leave it at that, the way I look at it with Leo. I just assume that they're not killing off, honestly, as many people as possible at this point, because then you can be as complicated as you want. The next scene, too, I'm thinking the actor's a little more interesting in this angle, but the angle itself, I'm not attached to. Catherine shows up and she's at the mill and she sees Shelley tied like, who are you? And she does have a good line in here too. I'm telling you, she's just acting terrifically in here, Piper Laurie or like that, where she sees the bomb start to go off and Shelley's like, let me free. And she's like, shut up, I'm thinking. And she takes a moment to kind of think of something. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. She's calm, cool, collected, under control. And of course, immediately it goes up in flames. She sets Shelley free. So we're supposed to, think that that's something. To me, again, we get a bunch of quick scenes here all mixed together because right after that, you see Jacques. He's passed out. He's sleeping, because he's obviously under house arrest or whatever, but he's in the hospital. So his hands are handcuffed. But you see this pair of black gloves tape his one hand his arm that's not been shot. And the pillow comes up and he gets snuffed out. And you're like, okay, we think we know who this is. But you're like, okay, this guy's gone. But we don't see who, but that's what it is. And then you get the next big scene of
you're wrong.
Ready to go in there. I'm going through it right now, looking at it. So, oh yeah, we do see it. Yeah, we see who it is.
Because it goes to his face, and it is Leland Palmer.
About time, Leland. Get some house justice, baby. Yeah. Yeah, we kind of knew this was coming. What'd you think of these two scenes?
You're absolutely right about Catherine. I was going to say that basically Catherine doesn't really care about Shelley, who's tied up there. Who the hell are you? And she's wanting information. Shelley's like, I don't know anything. Catherine, I think for a moment there, she's debating just leaving her because she doesn't care. But then she does take the axe and frees her of the ropes, keeping her arms up, and they run, I assume, the hell out of there. And that leads into not the next scene, because it's exactly what you said, where Leland is trying to get some justice. But we get Pete. Poor Pete.
Yeah.
He's asking if Catherine is inside the mill, and he gets his moment. She's still my wife. And he takes something, a fire extinguisher, and he just goes in. I don't think it's going to end well for Pete at all.
Yeah.
We're getting close to the end, and the next scene goes back to Audrey, who's still in the room waiting. Ben, after the deal is done, he's saying, this is a call to celebrate to Blackie. And Blackie says, I have a new girl for you. And we know who the new girl is. So when Ben is going in there and he's saying, get ready for your dreams to come true or something like that, We see
He's always
Audrey,
quoting Shakespeare like a jerk. He is one of those guys.
and we see Audrey in there, and she doesn't let out an actual gasp, but she makes that kind of face, and that's how it fades. That's all we know. And we get led into the final scene. Do you want to take the final scene?
Yeah, but before we dive into it, I'll simply say that this scene here, this is what I'd mentioned earlier when I say you have the Quasimodo looking person sewing in the Queen of Spades, because I guess because One-Eyed Jacks, it's a card based thing, so I guess all the girls might have it. I'd have to go back and see if the other ladies of the night have their own cards. I see several of them with cards on their outfits, but not necessarily a big one like she's got. So maybe it's just the horrors rather than the card girls, let's say, or the coolers. But we know that Audrey sees that it's her dad, but her dad's like, okay, close your eyes, because he's doing it and walking in slowly. And I guess this is maybe important going into season 2, is that there might be a way out for Audrey that her father might not be able to see, depending on if he keeps his eyes closed. So that's, again, we're seeing a lot of these angles really develop to a really climatic point, but we're not necessarily getting, blow off yet. And I guess I'm okay with it. I'm not totally offended, but yeah, we get this long drawn out scene here at the end where it seems like almost everything's done. Cooper going back to what we've seen and when we've really bonded with him before, to his room, walking slowly, talking to Diane on a tape, recognizing that the Icelanders are drunk or done or gone or whatever. And a nice little touch too, I thought, was when he opens the door and he closes it and he sees the letter that Audrey had left underneath, because he didn't see her at One-Eyed Jack's, even though we as a viewer know that she was there and he was there at the same time. She saw him on the security monitor. She left a little note on there and he picks it up, and we don't know what's in the note, but he picks it up and he opens, I think, or doesn't read it, but he's like, oh, my special little detective or whatever, like she wrote this nice little note from her or whatever. But he gets a phone call. Someone's knocking at the door because he'd ordered room service. He gets whacked 3 times. Boom, 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 boom. End scene with all these cliffhangers. Man, what a way to end an episode. Did you like it, or did you hate this ending?
I need answers, sir. I don't even need the answer of who exactly killed Laura Palmer. I need new answers for the situation that we have now. Everything does come to a close, I suppose. But what is the name of this episode? Isn't it The Final Evening? Something like that?
The Last Evening.
The Last Evening, yes. So it looks like it definitely feels like an ending of some sort. It feels like the night is finishing. But I need more, sir. I need answers. I also, this is just me spitballing at this moment. Cooper does get shot like 3 times.
By
Thinking back to it, huh?
By a person in black.
Yes. But thinking back on it, an Invitation to Love, we always, when we saw the gunshot, I'm pretty sure Leo only gets shot once, right?
You mean from Shelley?
No. I mean from the...
Oh, yeah. The Hank was just a one shot with his rifle through the window.
The person in Invitation to Love gets shot multiple times. And I could be looking too much into that, because it definitely seems like the scummy guy on Invitation to Love is Leo, and that's basically what connects. But thinking back on it, we say everything that's shown has a point. The guy in Invitation to Love, I think they said his name, but I can't remember it. He gets shot, I'm pretty sure, 3 times. And I'm just realizing that now.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you go, okay, you have to accept that it's not resolved. And what is the question here that's being resolved? This show is called Twin Peaks, so it's supposed to be about what happens in Twin Peaks. What did happen in Twin Peaks? Well, Laura Palmer got murdered, and we find out really quick that that's the basis of where everything goes. But obviously this show's really got more of a soap opera vibe to it with all the different characters. And like we say, the first several episodes, 4 or 5 of them, we had a new character every week. Some of the smaller minor characters got a bigger role later on. Some, like Hank, showed up later and were significant roles. Other people, like Pete, you mentioned, nice guy, don't know that he deserves it. Maybe going into season 2 will have a more expanded role. It's hard to say. So obviously the show, you want to know what the hell's going on. You've got so many unanswered storylines. When this ended in May in 1990, and this got rerun, I think, over the summer at that time, people could not stop talking about all the different things. But some of the things you and I had brought up over the course of these episodes, I think, are still interesting. We talked about how the pilot was fantastic. We talked how there was this dark, unknown aspect to it, because of, hey, this young woman's not what she seems. She's a really nice person in town to a lot of people and quite wholesome, too good to be true. We find she's got a really nasty side, and even here in episode 8 we find out she's got a really dark sexual side to her. And whether you think that's right, wrong, or whatever, the point is she did die by being brutally gang raped and everything else too, even though she liked rough sex and bondage and everything else there too. There's enjoying something, and then there's taking it too far and being all drugged out because she liked her cocaine. So do we care about Laura Palmer? Well, it's like a lot of the characters, I think, in this whole series. There's a lot of them that have interesting things about them. I don't know how many of them I'd like. There's more I almost kind of tend to almost dislike, but that's the beauty of the show, is there's not one point in the show where I look at it and go, okay, I'm going to hit fast forward because I don't care about this character. I may not like Maddy and the James gang angle and all that, but I like how they're, as a group, trying to investigate stuff. I thought that was cool. I really like the idea of maybe Audrey teaming up there with what's her face when they were in the girls' room. I thought that was a really great angle, but kind of shifted in the way that it did now. But there's plenty of plot lines that you can gravitate towards to get something out of it. And even though Cooper seems to be like the hero or the main guy, he doesn't necessarily get all the screen time, but he's got to be there to propel the detective part for going forward. So someone like you that has not watched the second season, for me, I have not watched it in the 25, 30 years it's not been on. I'm looking forward to taking a look at that. Obviously, there's a lot of angles here too. I can say that things do get resolved in season 2, which at that point, it's like a very popular show in the 80s, Moonlighting, where there was a sexual chemistry between the two detectives on there. And once they started kissing or becoming an item and all that, it went downhill. And of course, I'm talking about David and Maddy, for those that remember it. And we're talking about Bruce Willis playing the cocky detective. It ruined the show. So there's a lot of strong emotions about the second season, because ultimately after the second season it got canceled. I will simply say, and it's no secret to anybody that knows anything about Twin Peaks, even if you haven't watched it, you will find out who killed Laura Palmer. At that point, things get really crazy, because right now there's just hints of crazy stuff. There's the log lady. There's the spiritual stuff about the forest. There's the whole idea of this network of evil things that have been going on for a long time, when they had talked about the Bunkhouse Boys versus the other gang, and they have their secret symbols. That hasn't been explored too lately, but it's there, and it's very prominent, and they say it's been there for generations. We've seen a lot of other characters like Major Garland, Bobby's father, that when he's on screen commands a good presence and has things to say. We don't know necessarily why Nadine is the way she is, killing herself, and that may disgust us because of the act of itself, but we're assuming that it's going to have something. And we actually have not seen any character permanently killed off, because when we see Laura, she's already dead. So even though we have a high body count here and several characters in here, other than Jacques getting whacked by Leland Palmer, I don't know. I think it's been pretty good. It's been tough getting into it, but once you get your teeth sunk into this, like you said, and I agree with you totally, it makes you want more. What final thoughts do you have on the season overall?
I have wanted to watch the show for a long while, and actually finally getting to it, I've enjoyed every moment. you're absolutely right. There's no part of the show that's dull enough that I'm like, okay, I'm fast forwarding right now. I want to know everything that's going on in it, even the parts that I don't care for or that might not intrigue me as much. I want it all. And finishing this final episode, all I can say is I want more.
Yeah, I think the final thing I'll say here is that when I think about how the current movie consumption and TV show is out there now with streaming and everything, I really like the 1 episode a week format because, again, Twin Peaks to me really goes back to the where you talk about 1 episode and it's the water cooler talk. And I know everything's social media these days, and that's how a lot of people communicate. But there's something lost over the past generation where, like I say, a show like this just got bigger and people really paid attention to it. And there's a lot going on. And God forbid you have a show that's got a level of detail to it. Now nobody can follow it and comprehend it. And they crowdsource their thoughts about it. And they act like this is the first time there's anything, mildly detailed in a TV show. And it's quite striking how current trends are with everything, thinking that this level of detail, hardly ever exists or requires such a group effort that when they do an 8 episode series on Netflix or Prime or Hulu or whatever, that it's something that hasn't ever been done before. And it's simply not true. And I'm still thinking of season 2, just how weird it gets and how detailed they get. Twin Peaks was one of the last really big shows that a lot of people talked about how detailed it was. And not just a soap opera where you can skip a season or two and nothing seems to have changed much. So got to give Twin Peaks a lot of credit for that as well. All right, I'd like to thank everybody for listening to Season 1, Episode 8, the Season 1 finale of the original Twin Peaks on ABC from 1990. I'm your host, Robert, along here with Professor Pixel. We're looking forward to covering Season 2, and until next time, have a good night and stay extreme.
So long.